Welcome to Curation Conversations. It's going to be an exciting one today. I've got James Lever, CEO and co-founder of Multilocal. It's a real exciting start to the year for us. We have unveiled our technology Cureon into the market. But before we deep dive into what it is and how it works and how Cureon's really benefiting and also changing the market when it comes to curation and programmatic, I want James to talk to us about how we got here. So welcome, James.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here because I've watched all of the Curation Conversations to date and I've always been quite jealous not to be on them. So I'm very pleased to be here.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here. There's a lot to talk about.
There is.
So with, Multilocal's pioneered in curation 6 years. We've been laser focused as a business on producing the best technology, the best teams and expertise in curation. Like, how did that come about and how have we got to this point 6 years on?
It's been quite a journey. We didn't set out, I'm going to be always very honest with this, we didn't set out to be where we are today. We thought we were solving, as we've discussed before, we thought we were solving another problem. A problem around sort of monetization, yield management, etc. And through that, we started working with curation very early on, 6 years ago. No one was really involved with curation at all. And that was really, it was an aha moment. That Robin had probably certainly before me, of actually curation is something that is really going to change stuff. We already saw, even when we were looking at the yield management, the supply side was becoming ever more complicated. Hundreds of thousands of websites. And multiple browsers, multiple languages, data sources, ad format types, and it was becoming exponentially more complicated the whole time. And so we saw when we looked at curation, it was the first moment where we were like, this could solve a lot of that complication. That's sort of where we started out.
That makes sense. Like you said, the exponential kind of fragmentation, more formats coming into programmatic as well. You've got CTV, audio, digital out home, pegged for this year. So I can see that it's definitely aiding having better programmatic outcomes for advertisers and for publishers. Yeah. So that's kind of what got us here. Now, you've used Cureon as a technology in our business internally for quite a while. So what was the rationale for going, right, let's put Cureon out into market and ensure that, the clients and the partners that we all work with have access to this technology?
Yeah, it took us a while to get there, honestly, because we've been using this engine internally since day one. And building it, iterating it, developing it, expanding its remit, etc. from day one. And I don't think it occurred to us until sometime during the middle of last year that the market was really ready for it. Bearing in mind that, for the first 4 years of Multilocal, no one really cared about curation. All right, it was an uphill struggle. Yes, everyone was launching curation platforms, but the broader market wasn't that engaged in curation. And it was really in the last 2 years and then a ramp up in through 2025. I keep forgetting we're in 2025, but 2026. But anyway, a ramp up during 2025 when it really started to take off, and we realized that actually there was a huge amount of people who were getting into curation, wanting to get into curation. We've always provided a service. As well as the technology, we provide the service layer on top of the technology. But then increasingly the conversations we're having with people, they wanted to do their own thing on top of the technology we were building. And that was when we decided it was time to think about releasing Cureon as a standalone solution. And that brings us to today, really, where we've launched it, since the beginning of this year, and it's exciting because people seem to be reacting really well.
Yeah, there's been such positive sentiment and a lot of interest into what it is, how it works, what the benefits are to anybody that's thinking about their curation program, their curation strategy, whether they're data providers, advertisers, publishers, etc. So tell us a bit now about Cureon, what it is, how it works, the benefits.
It is a curation intelligence engine. So what happened was, and this partly goes back to the beginning. We started working on the Xandr platform, and I'm going to go through this journey to explain sort of what it does today. But we started working initially on the Xandr platform, 6 years ago, and then by the end of 2020, we were working on 2 or 3 different platforms. I think Pubmatic and Criteo, I think we'd launched, and at that point, you have to start making decisions about why you're launching a deal on this platform versus this platform. All right. And we didn't want that to be a completely manual thing. We didn't want that to be a complete sort of finger in the air. Well, today we've decided to go live on Xandr versus Pubmatic. So that was really when we started building the first pillar of Cureon, the planning tool. All right, that was where it came out of, and then as we started to onboard more SSPs, and we're now working across 18 SSPs, and work with more data companies, and as you know, we're now working with I don't even know how many data companies, ingesting data from a lot of companies, and so we realized we needed to be much smarter and much more efficient, because each brief that we were getting was taking us 3 or 4 days to respond to, and we wanted it to be taking us 3 or 4 minutes, frankly. And so we needed that planning tool to really drive effective, efficient use of where we're going to be running campaigns, how we're running campaigns, what's the historical data that's being used to make that decision. Pillar number 1, planning, and that's probably the sort of the oldest pillar of Cureon, but then the activation of deal IDs is probably the biggest single pain point that the industry has had over the last 15 years. I mean, I always joke about this, but everyone who's worked with PMPs at any point has got some form of PTSD. Agencies and publishers have always sort of run away from them because they are difficult. So activation becomes really, really fundamentally important. There's a lot of automation we can bring into it, and we have, but there's actually just a lot of sort of getting your hands dirty with the automation. So that's where, Cureon is a technology platform with a service layer, because you need that, and you don't get it. So you activate campaigns, and then the third thing is the optimization, because and I think this probably came as a bit of a surprise, particularly having come from publisher background, but deal IDs need refreshing. Campaigns run for a period of time. Deal IDs need refreshing for a variety of reasons. They need to be optimized, they need to be more targeted, etc., on a constant basis. And so we needed to start building that in, and in order to do that, we need to ingest a huge amount of data, and from DSPs, etc., to really work out what's going on the campaign. And in order to ingest that amount of data and make sense of it across a multiple SSPs, and have the ability to make real-time or close to real-time decisions.
In terms of Cureon, it's interesting to me you've got technology with human in the loop. So you're really meeting businesses and clients where they're at on their curation strategy and program to enable better results. And it pulls in the full kind of end-to-end activation of programmatic campaigns. Now, with that in mind, what clients are we looking for? Who can use Cureon? What are the benefits that they're going to get from the technology?
The easy answer is to say that honestly, anyone who wants to get into curation can benefit from using Cureon. But then we can get into specifics. There are a number of our partners, existing partners, such as some data companies, some DSPs, So let's take them as examples of companies who want to get into curation, but don't want to invest in the sort of whole infrastructure of the connecting in with multiple SSPs, building a team of operating it, all the same stuff that we've challenged ourselves with, the decisioning, the understanding, the analyzing, all of that stuff is really important. And so a number of companies we found have either decided on day one that they didn't want to invest in all of that, or what we're seeing a bit of a trend now of companies who have had a crack themselves, want to maybe even continue running with one SSP because they know how that works, but see the benefit of adding other supply sources or data sources, and so are asking us to operate on other sources, on other platforms. So I think that there's a usage opportunity for sellers. We obviously work with a number of sales partners around the world, and I think there's a huge opportunity for sellers with Cureon because it takes away the issue of supply. All right, we've dealt with that. I think honestly, there's a huge opportunity for ad agencies who are have so many competing priorities. Ad agencies and publishers, I should say, who within their businesses have so many competing priorities over the resource that they've got. And I think that what curation gives them a huge opportunity. They all see that curation gives them the opportunity, but what Cureon gives them is essentially the opportunity to find a revenue stream without necessarily having to invest significantly in resource to get there.
There's a key attribute that we talk about when it comes to Cureon and Multilocal is around that transparency piece. How do you frame that? Because let's face it, it's something that we talk about so frequently throughout all of media. What does that mean when it comes to Cureon?
I'm going to say you were really early with transparency, and we're shouting about transparency from for a few years now, and have made sure that transparency is built in to our entire business. Transparency is part of Cureon. Cureon console gives the user access, full transparency of what's going on in their campaigns, what supply is there, what data is there, what everything, what percentages are being applied, etc., etc. I mean, there is full transparency, and we've always been very open and transparent. It's something we believe in, and you've been absolutely focused on that, and it's built in.
It's interesting as well because it almost feels like another ethos of our business when I think about the attributes of Cureon, but actually how closely aligned they are as to how Multilocal runs itself, is that unbiased. We're talking about Cureon in market is the unbiased curation intelligence engine. What does that mean? What's that in real term?
It means that we are not beholden to any specific inventory source, data source, platform, anything. All right. I sometimes think of it the other way. We are 100% biased to outcomes. All right. Yeah. We are when we think about how does a campaign need to operate. And when you're pushing something through the Cureon planning or when it's being optimized, we are able to be absolutely laser focused on what the outcomes need to be, as opposed to what a specific input has to be. If supply path optimization was run as it's meant to run, then actually curation and Cureon as we built it would be ideal for it.
I think, we produced a piece few years. I've lost track of time now, on audience path optimization, and that whole ethos of being unbiased means you find the next best impression to find that audience, as opposed to it, to your point, being around the consolidation of technology that doesn't always favor the best and most effective path to monetizing an audience for an advertiser, or actually for publishers. So I love that that's kind of built into, here's your next best way of finding that audience.
It's got to be like that, because advertising has to work. It has to work predominantly. It's got to drive results, and those results can't just be, because it makes someone feel good. It's got to actually deliver results for the advertiser. It's got to be right for the end user who's seeing it, and everyone in between. And so I think audience path optimization is a good term, and I think it works. It gets under the skin of what we are trying to achieve in an unbiased way.
Yeah, I love that. Essential for building, something like you're building a model and an engine that can work to attract more investment into anything that's programmatic surely feels like a really mutually beneficial piece for the whole industry, as opposed to tech for tech's sake. But
it's got to be the right thing, hasn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's got to solve something. And also we've got, you go back to the issue of the incredibly complicated supply path, all right? And the open internet is, as we all know, the open internet has, issues. There are fundamental frailties to how the open internet is performing and working and everything at the moment. Unless we can make it more efficient, more effective, and deliver results, the walled gardens will continue to scoop up market share, and they don't have much more market share to scoop up, frankly.
It's a fair point. It's interesting because when we're talking about cureon and curation as a whole, as well as we're leading that category, is it all formats? Like, is it, when you talk about unbiased, are we talking about absolutely all types of media? What is the limitations, or what's the growth areas that you're seeing?
So, yes. And one of the questions we often get is, why do you need to work on so many SSPs? All right. And the answer is because there are so many different formats, right? And geographies. So there's a bunch of SSPs, exchanges, that operate globally on majority of formats. Good, box ticked. But then you have unique, I used to call them edge cases, but they're no longer edge cases, whether you've got, a CTV or audio, digital out of home. And so that's why we continue to look for new SSPs and onboard and work with new SSPs, because there are always additional use cases that we want to be able to cover. What was the second part of your question?
It's a good question. I'd say more formats, and in terms of where you've seen the growth.
Yeah. So growth, obviously, CTV. There's a huge amount of excitement and interest in CTV, and that's growing now globally. I think initially we certainly saw that happening in North America, but actually, I would say in the last few months, there's definitely been a noticeable rise outside of North America. Audio is becoming more and more interesting, and I really want audio to work. I mean, as a avid podcast listener, it drives me nuts the amount of unsold ads that I hear, or ads that just don't seem to run on podcasting. So I want audio to work much better, but definitely there's been an increase. Video generally, but we cover everything. And then the one area that we are sort of trying to really explore and get off ground, I guess, is social, and how we get into social. And there are some early signs of interest, both on the sort of social providers and on the other side that make that interesting.
Yeah, interesting integration. It's so expansive. I mean, the engine itself can pick up signal, plan, and activate and optimize so quickly. There's that future proofing there. I think finally, just in terms of Cureon itself and its kind of market fit. You mentioned something there, global. So when we're looking and people are working with us with the Cureon technology, are we covering all markets? And what degree of that is global versus local supply?
We are covering all markets. Cureon always has done, because we work across SSPs that cover all markets and data, etc. Cureon itself comes in 5-6 languages, I think, at this point in time. I'm trying to remember. So Cureon is in multiple languages already, and we will continue to iterate on that as required. Obviously, we're going to have better data partnerships or supply partnerships in some markets than others. There's going to be better level of data in some markets than there are in others. But where there is data and supply available, we tend to have access to it, and it tends to flow through Cureon. One of the important things, and I probably should have said this earlier, but one of the most important things we've done is actually applying a singular taxonomy across everything, because when you're dealing with this many sort of inputs from exchanges, data companies, countries, etc., you need a way of being able to look across everything in a singular with a singular taxonomy, so that when you're looking for men aged 18 to 34 in central London, you are able to apply that across everything and get one answer. But if you want to look at men aged 18 to 34 in Tokyo or London or Taipei or wherever, we've got the same level of, or we have inventory.
We don't get tested on Taipei as a...
I always like it. I used to say,
give us your gnarliest brief.
Yeah, I used to say, give us your hardest brief and we'll do it. And I think CTV in Korea 4 years ago was a pretty hard one. That was a pretty punchy one. My favorite one ever, I'm trying to remember, I won't say which agency or brand, but I will say that someone said, okay, we're looking for, we need to target oncologists in the UK. And I did a Google search at how many oncologists are there in the UK, registered oncologists in the UK. Turns out there are 800 registered oncologists in the UK, which actually is a lower number than I thought. But anyway, even if it's 1,000, I think the budget for this campaign was £200,000. And I said, actually hiring a limo and paying a visit to each one of them is much better than using programmatic.
Yeah, I mean, there's limitations, isn't there? You never know. That's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I remember those times, and now look at the breadth and depth that we've got now. But I think the language element of that, of Cureon, and its adaptability to be able to access all markets internationally, I think is fundamental to this success, because there's so many centralized budgets now. Again, it's all about being able to find and scale those audiences quickly, really quickly. And I love how you're talking about, and something we're really proud of is the categorization, that taxonomy, because we know that data hygiene is fundamental, especially as we start moving into AI in an agentic world. Having human vetted domains, again, being transparent in the way that we operate to make sure that the quality that goes into deals and the scalability and the accuracy is really important to our clients. So I think that process is often overlooked, and it's really fundamental.
It's really, really important, and we're seeing now in real world examples where AI is built on bad foundations, the output is bad. We realized very early on, when we weren't even thinking about AI, we realized that we needed to make sure that the data that was going into essentially what I used to think of as the data lake, and we now call Cureon, but what the data that was going in there needed to be clean, because if we weren't going to have it clean, then we would have problems later. So everything is vetted and verified and checked, and that's really, 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 really super important. It becomes more important. We do a lot of medical campaigns, we do a lot of gambling campaigns, we do a lot of things like that, and we need to know what we're putting into the deal is right for the advertising.
Yeah, it's a matter of compliance, brand safety, brand suitability, and that's the joy. I think back to the start of the conversation around deals. Curation is more than just deals now, but that's where we started from, and that was the promise of a really safe, beautiful user experience, great brand, both on the media side and the advertiser side, great brand experiences. But we just didn't get the activation bit quite right. Yeah. And so then we default to the exchange, and that's where that kind of murkiness happened. Now I feel like we're coming full circle back into, this kind of new wave of programmatic. I even referred to programmatic as traditional programmatic the other day. You think it's over 10 years old now. The traditional exchange programmatic versus now, really selective, deals, control, performance, transparency. Like that's what it should be, because of all the formats, to your point, that are now built within the same pipes, which I think brings us nicely into, we talked about how we got here, but what got us here won't get us there. So what's your view, your vision for Cureon as we go forward?
For Cureon, I've bored a lot of people, internally, you included, about what I think of as my electronic program guide analogy. And I think when you want to watch Mad Men on TV, most people don't really care whether they are watching it on Prime, Netflix, HBO, Disney, whatever. You just want to watch Mad Men. And the EPGs, the electronic program guides, on most of the digital platforms have become very adept at getting you to that programming when you want to watch it. All right. Now, obviously, a lot of people have cord cut, and that has an impact. But funnily enough, I think my understanding is a lot of cord cutting is slowing down because of exactly that problem. People want the ease of getting to where they want to get to. So that part of the analogy is over. But where I see, the open internet, and increasingly the internet, not just the open internet, the internet, going back, is an incredibly complicated thing. If you want to buy that woman aged 18 to 30 in central London right now, you shouldn't have to worry which platform it's on, which exchange is on, which publisher is on, which data segment is being used to get you there, etc. You just want to buy that audience, all right? And that's the future of Cureon. That's where we're heading, all right? It's just removing all of that headache, all right? I want to buy this. Here it is, all right? Package that up, send it to my DSP, I can buy it. Boom, all right? And that's what we're working on. How do we continually simplify the process and connect the buyer with the audience they want without all the hurdles, without all the noise, and just get there? And that's where I would love us to be, doing more with, as I said, social and other things like that, because that's such a big part of the internet. But, that's where it goes. It goes, doing more of what we're doing, better, faster, more automated, enabling more people to do it, go further in the process themselves. And I think, hopefully that's enough to keep us going for a while.
Thank you, James. Thank you for joining me. It's been lovely to sit and have a conversation. We barely get the time. You're always on a plane.
I'm doing a lot of traveling, and you're the curation queen now, so it's difficult to, be given an audience with the curation queen, and I'm pleased to sit on the sofa here.
It took a podcast.
It took a podcast to get us together on a rainy day in London. But no, it's good.